Stoicism. In order to understand how Stoic epistemology and logic work, I think it could be helpful to give a quick look at their cosmology, the way in which they envision our cosmos, our universe. So, according to their cosmology, the logos is what rules upon us. Now, the word logos in Greek is a difficult word because it indicates, in general, rationality, reason, but it's something deeper than that. It's an underlying meaning, I'd say, that keeps things together. So, logos is the first principle. Logos and psyche, the original breath, is the first principle that governs our world, our universe, and our life is then ruled by fate. So there's our will that is just the expression of the will of Zeus, and even the will of Zeus is the expression of the higher will. So in order to live a good, fulfilling life, in order to live the life of the sage, we should just understand this higher will that rules upon us, in order to feel ourselves oikoisis, at home, in order to feel ourselves at ease in the house, oikos, that is provided to us, we need to understand the providential structure of the world. We need to feel one with this structure. So either epistemology or logic, as Müller noticed, have in Stoicism have a moral and epistemological value. Because our capacity to know something is connected to our ability, our moral ability to put ourselves to work for a higher purpose, to make ourselves available to understand something that we'll never be able to control and will never be able to tame. So, validity, truth are concepts that do not depend upon us. We can be able to express at best what we think, and we could be able to do that if we understand what happens to us, if we understand what is in this world, what is our life about. So epistemology and logic are at the service of this kind of understanding. Validity, truth are open systems. According to Sextus, no logic is able to serve truth functioning interpretations. Meaning we cannot make the unknown known through its premises, because according to Stoic syllogistic, the truth comes if the premises are true too. So it's true. The truth cannot be just something formal. It can't have just its formal validity, but it's something that has to be intrinsically true. We'll talk more about that later. But this is the viewpoint in general that Stoics adopt in relation to their logic and epistemology. It's completely at service of these higher logos. Now, Stoic logic. Stoic logic is basically a propositional logic. It's an analysis of axiomata. Axiomata is the Greek word to say propositions. The verb, yeah, that gives the stem for axiomata, the noun axiomata, is axio, which means to be worthy. So the axiomata, the propositions are assertable. I can assert something because this something is electon. Now, lecton is the Greek word to say sayable. Sayable, basically, it's what underlies, it's that kind of meaning that underlies in what we say or we think. So, Stoic logic is a propositional logic whose subject matter is the sayable. It's that sense, that meaning that underlies all that we say, all that we express. Axiomata are those propositions that can be asserted. We might have a simple predicative assertive, for example, Socrates is walking, or a simple indefinite assertible, someone is walking. In this case, the proposition is something that I can assert, is something that I can say, meaning it makes sense by itself, it can be complete by itself, and it's a way through which I mediate between the thing itself, Mark or someone. Sorry, I said Socrates at the beginning. Socrates or someone, and my thought, the way in which I expressed this thought. Now, when different sayables connects with each other, we have an argument. So the arguments logoi, again the word logos come back, logoi are a compound of assertible. Now, when these arguments, when can these arguments be considered valid? They can be considered valid if, according to the Chrysippos conditional, if the conditional is formed with the conjunction of is precedent and its antecedent, and its conclusion as consequent is correct. So an argument is sound when, in addition to be valid, so in addition for the conditional to be consistent with the antecedent and the consequent, an argument is sound, which is a technical term, sound, because they didn't distinguish between the sound and the truth. So when I can say something, when I can express the sound of something, this sound is assertible immediately. So an argument is sound, is valid, when in addition to being valid according to the combination of conditional and antecedent and consequent, it has also true premises. What does that mean? It means that we can't have a perfect syllogism. I mean, while with Aristotle, for example, we have a perfect syllogism if the premises by themselves make the truth itself. All human beings are mortal. Socrates is a human being, Socrates is mortal. In this case, all human beings are mortal is a universal premises, and the truth of this premise, the known of this premise, makes the validity of its consequence. Socrates is mortal. Now, according to Sextus, no logic is able to serve fully a truth functioning interpretation. So we can't make the unknown known through its premises, because in general a syllogism in Stoicism is an open system which has moral and epistemological functioning, and it's a way to train our mind to understand the truth. So the Stoic syllogism that is survived to us, Stoic syllogism is, for example, if it is day, it is light, and it is the premise, which is different from the universal premise that we can find in Aristotle's syllogism. All human beings are mortal. We can see here that there's the Chrysippus conditional. If it is day, it is light. This is the premise. Then the consequence, the second position in the syllogism is occupied by, but it is not the case that it is light, the consequent. Then the inference is, therefore, it is not the case that is day. So the conditional here, if it is day, is light, the premise, it is a true premise. So in this case, we can have the validity of the argument that is proved by the inference. Therefore, it is not the case that is day. But because it has been respected, the construction of the conditional with its antecedent and consequence, and the premise, if it is day, it is light, it's sound, it is immediately true. So it's an assertable that can be said, and it's self-evident, basically. In this kind of logic, we can see how the notion of validity is interpreted, at least according to Muller reading of Stoic Logic, as a technical ability. So we can't have a validity that is exclusively formal, partially because sound and truth are combined together. What is sayable and what is assertable are not distinct from each other. So our way of making sense of what we think through words, through thoughts, through expressions is the same as what we actually think. So there's no formality in the first place in the distinction between assertable and sayable. And partially because of their cosmology, partially because of the way in which they consider the universe. And so the function that logic has to accomplish is that of understanding this world, and the logic is a way to train our brain in order to think clearly, in order to organize the chaos of impressions. And the word impressions is our bridge to their epistemology. Now, the word epistemology in Greek comes from episteme and logos again. Logos means study, and episteme means knowledge. So epistemology is the study of what we can know. While logic is the study of the logikos, and in this case, logos was the arguments and the sayable. In the case of epistemology, in the case of Stoic epistemology, we want to describe how we come to know something. Basically, our knowledge, according to the Stoic viewpoint, verges around impressions. And this is very close to what you might read with Hume and empiric epistemology. So basically, the impressions are what leave a traces upon us. Stoics distinguish between catalectic and non-catalectic impressions. So the non-catalectic impressions are those that come from a non-existent or a not in accordance object. So it's something that either does not exist or what we are being impressed by is not immediately consistent with what we can see it impressed us. So it's a confused impression. We can hear something, we don't know from where this thing is coming, we think it's a car, instead there's no car outside. So it's a form of not certain impression. Instead, the cataleptic impression is an impression in which what comes from something existent outside is in accordance with the existence itself. This kind of impression has to be distinguished from the fantasticon. The fantasticon is basically our imagination, so we can be impressed by our imagination. There can be an empty attraction of a pathos, of an affection, that is though without impression. So there's no hyletic, there's no material datum that is impressing me in that case, but there's just the affection, there's just the pathos. So it's a form of an empty attraction. Now, Chrysippus didn't like the word impression. He proposed to replace the word impression with heteroiosis, which means alteration. So instead of being impressed, which seems something that it's just one and can't be modified, according to Chrysippus, at the basis of our knowledge is this system of exercised expression, this system of facticity that is continuously modified and exercised by our expression. And this system produces an ongoing alteration through which we arrive to form our conception. So the word conception again comes from, this time not from Greek, but from Latin, cum capere. A concept is what we cum capere. It's what we capemus, in this case, we put together, and we transform into a thought. So a conception is a number of impressions or alterations that are stored away. It's the accretion of perceptual impressions, we might say. And it is through this conception that we form our knowledge. Now, plenty of problems. We saw with the Stoic Logic that we can't reach a validity that is a formal validity, because we need to make sure that the premises of our reasoning are valid too. How can we make sure that our knowledge is correct? How can I be sure that what impressed me really exists? I think it exists, but how can I be 100% secure that what I'm knowing now, what I'm knowing now is valid, is true? What's the stem for the validity of my knowledge, to recognize the validity of my premises, to recognize the validity of the premise that we were mentioning before. If it is a day, it is light. How can I be sure that that thing is valid and I'm not hallucinating? Through assent. So there's a part of us, the will, I would say, that regulates our ability to accept the impression and consider the impression as valid. Now, what are the credentials for me to accept something? According to Stoicism, I accept something because it has energeia, so it has clarity, and I accept something for homologia because it's in agreement with what is outside and what I perceived and maybe what others perceived. So, on the basis of these credentials, I can say that the idioma of the object, the impressions I received are clear because I can distinguish this impression and I can see them with clarity, and they are immediately evident for me. How this clarity and agreement, how these credentials come to me? By a motivational force. So basically, according to Stoic epistemology, there's this passive force that we might call again logos, the logos that I was mentioning in their cosmology, that pushes upon us in order to recognize the clara et distincta perceptio. So it's the way through which I recognize the clarity and distinctness of something. And it's on the basis of this recognition of the acceptance of the strength of this force that I will be able to do actions that are fitting, that are good in the world, in the place I occupy in my life. So according to Stoics, I can, the sage will do katortomata, which are right actions, those actions that are by nature correct and immediately good, and the other human beings will do katekonta, fitting actions that are consequential in life to this motivational force. So, according to this epistemology, again, we are actors of a deeper force, again, the logos, that impinges us upon a decision that we make in relation to the number of chaotic impressions that hit upon us and modify the way in which we look at things and drive our knowledge. According to this logic and epistemology, the sense of validity and truth comes from our ability to understand the force that drive us and using our words in a way that they can be asserted with a certain validity. This is the extent of what is in control, what is in our hands. If you have questions about this topic, you can find me on my email, and that's all for now. Thanks.